Hello everyone, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you for coming to my channel. Okay, I'm on my knees here, both in gratitude for your patronage, but also because it makes it easier to film this tank. This is the 30 centimeter cube, so 30 by 30 by 30, which I think equals around 6 gallons or something. It's UNS, I forget the actual number. You know how they give them a letter and a number, but that's what this is, a classic shape for a nano aquarium. Maybe a little small for your typical iwagumi, Japanese for rock formation, and the style of this aquascape, right? So in a sense, most of you know this, but rock formation is literally what best describes the aquascaping motif. So you use stone and a minimal amount of plants, usually green. And that's what we've got going on here. I've got Sirius stone creating this sort of Mount Rushmore, which I think the camera's doing a reasonable job of capturing. I could have maybe polished the glass a little more. There's some powder algae, but and I'll talk about that because it's very insignificant. And a lot of times with an iwagumi, when you don't have a bunch of stem plants or floating plants, especially in the beginning, you're going to get algae very typically on something like a slow growing anubias or even the rocks. But because of some luck and the plan that I chose is working better than I ever would have dreamed, and I wanted to talk about that for when you guys are attempting escape like this, or really any aquarium you might be building, because there's always more than one way to skin a cat, and there's a bunch of different ways to get your aquarium going and to have it be in its best possible shape as soon as possible. And sometimes those methods work fair, sometimes they work really well, and sometimes they don't work at all, and we got to redo it. But in this aquarium, I had mostly good to excellent results from Jump Street. And so the first thing, since I brought up algae, the reason I didn't get it, I'm using CO2, so that helps first and foremost. Maybe not foremost, but that's the first thing. But even if I wasn't, the cleanup crew, right? I put in 4 juvenile mystery snails. You see 2 white ones there, and a bunch of different kinds of nearite. You see one hitching on that mystery snail there. Bunch of different nearite snails, and of course, ram's horns are in here. And my gosh, they're doing a great job, and that's what they do. The nearites in particular, but I mean, you see the mystery snail. They're both on the rock there, and they're not there to eat, to leach. Well, maybe they're getting minerals from the rock. I know their shells benefit, but they're eating algae. And a lot of times, right up there under the light, I'm seeing a massive light reflection. And you see all those cherry shrimp. That's part 2 of the cleanup crew. It's a minimal cleanup crew, but there's lots of them. So lots of different snails and a crap ton of cherry shrimps. And that worked. I've got no autosynclus, no Coriodoras, pygmy, none of that. Not that they're an algae eater. Of course they will, they love that, but I mean, they don't eat algae per se. They like the green material. They're omnivores. They will eat vegetable matter if it's palatable to them. But Coriodoras are not truly a cleanup crew. They're more of a maintenance to the cleanup crew. They eat fallen food and such, which vicariously does reduce your algae, not having a bunch of crap caught in between the plants, just rotting away, adding nutrients and other material, which leads to algae. So the cleanup crew, I got lucky. I chose what I chose. I was gonna say forsook, but I never know if that's a word or not. I think it's kind of archaic, but I didn't get autosynclus, which I always do, and I didn't in this tank. and I kind of OD'd on the snails. I knew they would love the rock because of, as I said earlier, how it benefits their shells. Usually most of my aquarium setups go acidic and softer, but this one is just that Cereus stone, which does not buffer the water in the way of making it more acidic. It might push it the other direction. So, and that also helps with these endlers. That's the only fish in here, by the way, a group of male blackfire endlers. And they're pretty awesome, right? They're kind of like the guppy version of the clown killifish or the rocket killifish. They've got that rocket-like tail section, fuselage. So I only have males in here, probably around 15. You know, and they're also pretty reasonable algae eaters in their own right. All live bearers are. They will pick at it, and the less you feed them, the more apt they are to do that. I feed all my tanks about once a day, sometimes a little more if I'm just in the mood. They're always going to appear hungry. All your fish will always appear to be hungry. And they're, you know, you could argue that they could eat more, but they certainly will find food, and that's going to be stuff that's desirable to remove from the aquarium if you feed less. But so the net of all that, the snails plus Neocaridina really worked in conjunction with the CO2. And you know, I always run pretty good lights. This is the ONF, a really nifty, kind of stylish nano light, full spectrum LED. Although if I did it over again, I'd get Chihiro's version of this, because you'll get more of the red, more of the color. This is spraying white, but the plants don't matter, especially green plants, and that's all that I have in here. So let's talk about the number two cool tip and trick, folks. Carpet. Everybody wants a carpet in their aquarium. You know, everybody thinks it's badass, you know, because it is. Well, look at this carpet. This was so freaking easy. And it's just microsword, right? It's like Halanthium tellum. There's a number of different ways you could go with this. Certain kinds of dwarf sag that don't get too big. But I just put these in. I just pulled a bunch out from another tank and just stuck them in willy-nilly. And look at that carpet. Now, if you go with dwarf hairgrass or Monte Carlo, I mean, it looks great, but God, is it high maintenance. I haven't trimmed this at all in 4 or 5 months, and it's growing perfectly with no rotting sections or yellow sections, no algae buildup, and it looks beautiful. It freaking looks beautiful. And I'd argue it's doing more to help the water parameters and the stability of the tank than a dwarf hairgrass or a Monte Carlo, which is more fragile and probably doesn't need as much, so ergo doesn't pull as much out of the aquarium. I could be wrong there. It doesn't matter. This stuff is cheap and it's easy. You don't need a badass lighter CO2 for it. Now, clearly that's helping with, you know, if this would have been a B, a letter grade B without that stuff, but you know, it's an A with it. I don't think I could get that result. I don't think I could get a better result. I don't think the best aquascaper in the world could get a better front carpet for an Iwagumi or any aquarium than I've got right here, right now, with just some microswords. And I don't know if I'll ever go back to Monte Carlo or dwarf hairgrass. For one thing, you don't have to cut it, hardly ever. Now, I'm never going to say never. This could have a growth spurt. You never know. And if there's a few of the sag in here, those do get, you know, Vallisneria-like sized, but that's not happening. So I think I got really lucky. And this is a cheap, easy plant to grow, killer carpet. So the other two plants are Anubias petite, and I've got lots of it. And normally that would be just encrusted with algae. Like you see some of it there, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's right under the light. And yet the cherry shrimp love to come up here and sunbathe and pick away at it. And a little bit of little algae like that just gives it the natural look, right? You know, we don't want a pristine aquarium is a dead aquarium, right? It needs to be organic. And of course, in keeping with the theme of no-brainer, easy plants that aren't always used in high-end aquascapes or in iwagumi, pearlweed. Pearlweed. And people say, oh, it grows too fast, blah, blah, blah. I take in a tank this size, a pair of scissors, it takes me 3 minutes. I turn off the filter, chop it all down so that it matches the line where the rock is there, and then pull it out with a net. It is not a problem, you know. Yeah, pearlweed grows really fast, but look at how lush and plush that is. So I've got a Nubius petite in the center along the rock. I've got this microsort here, and there's a little bit of pearlweed that found its way there. And then I've got just pearlweed in the back. End of story. Got a killer hang on back. I'm having a lot of issues with the Fluval brand, a bunch of things they make, but this new hang on back, I forget what it, it's their new line. It is beautiful. I mean, that's dirty right now, but it is a beautiful, quiet, high functioning tool, and I really like it. So I can't say that about all Fluval products right here, right now, but I can say it about that. I am so pleased with how this aquarium has turned out, and the two things I've highlighted, the kind of El Cheapo, unexpected, but why didn't I think of that before, options for your carpeting plants, being point number one. And point number two, going nuts with Neocaridina and different kinds of snails from the Jump Street. You know, those two things, along with the big three, a good light, CO2, and a fortified aqua soil. I mean, this isn't gravel or sand. I don't do gravel or sand unless it's cosmetic. I just think that's just not how to grow plants. They will grow, and there's all those videos that debate that, but I know for a fact I get excellent results with all plants if I just put a couple inches of aqua soil or more and call it a day. And since I'm not really aquascaping with pebbles, if I had pebbles here, you'd not see them anyway. We always forget that. We make our and I do this, I'm guilty. I put all these little details, and if the plants come in like you want them to, you won't see any of that stuff anyway. So it's kind of like a funny thing that we do, even though we know better. But it's so fun aquascaping and creating your hardscape. It's one of the funnest parts, that putting every little pebble in its place. Why deny ourselves that pleasure, even though if the plants do what we want them to do, we won't see that stuff at all. But I love the way that one smaller stone, I forget what the Japanese call, they have a term for the primary stone, secondary, and tertiary stone, and I just love the way that's occupying its space there with that green and gray with a few lines of white. I think it's so cool. I am so happy. And the endlers are just a joy. They're easy peasy. Now, I don't put a female in here because she would be harassed to death. It would be, I would be canceled if I come up with a metaphor. I was going to say something about a horny frat house and putting one sorority girl in there. I mean, these are all rambunctious males, but in the absence of a female, they're perfectly fine and happy and frolicking. And unlike some fish where the female makes the males show better, endlers and guppies and live bears, I find that's not necessary for them to show their optimal color. And so these black fire endlers, which breed pretty freaking true. I mean, I raised all these, and there's none that I would call. I mean, there's a few that have grayer backs than the jet black, but I mean, I'm grasping at straws to try to find a complaint. If you have any questions about this aquarium and you want to comment on some of the stuff I said, I don't know if my takes were hot takes or not, but I'd love to hear from you. As always, folks, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.